So, we really do have an opportunity to do really cool things that you can't even do on Ethereum, but we have basically an Ethereum copy state, which is very interesting as well. Because if you guys are developing things, you guys know how the ETH testnets kind of suck. They don't really have anything useful on them. So, Pulsechain could become really valuable just being a little brother to Ethereum for a while. Where you can actually try these things out with real live people, real live Americans, right? I think we obviously want to think of ourselves as being the big boy immediately, but that's probably not going to be the case. But we can become very valuable, literally just being the little brother to Ethereum for a bit, where you've got tons of real live Americans and Australians and whatever who have money actually using DeFi to its full potential because they can. Whereas you can't really on Ethereum unless you're a millionaire. Like it's just too expensive to transact with a lot of these protocols. It's actually a huge opportunity for us. And the other thing I wanted to add in there, when I talked about those three phases, what I think you're going to see is that a lot of the guys that are developing now from the community, a lot of them will basically give up and move on and disappear. They'll fail. But some of us will actually hopefully succeed and we'll build track records, right? So, we'll have our own kind of, enterprises, if you will, around our what we do and our personal brands. And, I think that's going to be pretty exciting to see longer term as well. So, you'll see guys like potentially Power City or the PH team, my team, being guys that are like, okay, well, they've done really good work in the past. Who's to say they're not going to do good work in the future, right? And I'm pretty excited about that as well. And it's actually really, really exciting. And all of this value that we create ultimately flows back into Pulse and Hex, in my opinion, right? We bring in all these users, and they ultimately, at the end of the cycle, will want to be holding stable coins, Pulse, and Hex. So, that I think is ultimately very bullish.
Well, and I think if you look at the body of work that's being prepared to be released on Pulsechain at launch, right? There's a lot of different protocols. There's some that are, not so great, and there are some that are for DeFi tools and primitives that we need to have a mature market on Pulsechain. And this is the benefit of not launching an empty chain, right? So you don't have to wait for these things to be built.
What you just said there. Maybe give examples of what you mean by that, because that phrase you used was beautiful.
So the different primitives are your basic trading, your lending, different vaults and tools, stablecoin generators. To be able to long and short things, to be able to have futures trading and, leverage trading. And I mean, there's the list just goes on and on and on and on about all the things that we know are coming, are already being built for Pulsechain. These are things that happen in mature markets, right? You don't start day one with a brand new market with all these things. You start with basic banking. Here's the checking account. Here's your savings account. Then you add CDs into the mix. And then you start lending things out. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? We're jumping right into the deep end. And we have a very mature market with all the really high-end professional level tools that you would want to have really interesting, activity on chain on day one, right? We don't have to wait for these things to be built. They're being built right now, right? So this is a major differentiator. You don't have to, when Phantom just first launched, there was barely anything running on it. It took a long time for Phantom to become a chain that had really interesting, creative, innovative DeFi going on it. But it's still not a major contender yet against, say, Optimism or Arbitrum and Ethereum, right? Pulsechain has an opportunity to go day one. Huge number of projects that are, some of them proven because they're forks of existing things, some of them creative, brand new things that you're not going to find anywhere else. And this combination, I think, is going to be able to catapult us ahead, or at least into the news enough to kind of gain some attention and say, hey, something is going on over there, right?
I love that. I really love that. So true.
Me too. Love that.
I wanted to actually ask Katie and Gamma this question, because it seems like you guys are well in tune with the developers surrounding Pulsechain. I have colleagues of mine that can assist in developing a layer 2 on Pulsechain when the time comes. There's actually a representative of him in here. It's Syscoin that I've worked with for quite some time, and they're working on Optimistic and ZK rollups. And we talk about adoption before, and we talk about the necessity of a layer 2, like you said, Gamma. In the event that that's needed, and Katie, because you know the devs as well, who would I speak to in regards to assisting in developing a layer 2 on Pulsechain? I think it would be a benefit for all parties.
Well, define who would you talk to. You shouldn't have to talk to anybody. You would just deploy it.
Okay.
And if it was good,
Fair
then
enough.
people would use it.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I really didn't know how it worked, so that's why I brought it up. I really don't know how deploying and stuff like that works, so I figured to ask.
Exactly what Gamma said. One of the best things about Pulsechain actually changing its consensus. So when you were looking at bringing over bigger dogs, for instance, to integrate with the previous V2B, it was difficult because there was multiple variables that you didn't really know for people to be able to integrate with that chain, like a pre-existing node network, for instance, an Oracle service. You kind of needed documentation to know their node setup and et cetera, et cetera. Where with the new consensus model being a fork of ETH, it's rather simplified now because at the end of the day, you just look at ETH. It's a lot easier for developers currently, to be honest, and most developers are on Ethereum. So when Famous said that he wants the bigger guys to come over, but it might take some time, I think it could take some time, but I also think the new consensus model is more inviting than the previous consensus model because a lot of them are used to developing on ETH. There is a lot of bad developers out there. That statement is true and very fair, to be honest. But at the end of the day, a lot of the big dogs do sit on ETH, and Pulsechain is now a system state copy with the same consensus. So it's enticing to developers to want to develop on Pulsechain, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, so Corey, so at the bare minimum, you wouldn't ask permission to do it, but you would maybe need to talk to a Pulsechain developer, submit a pull request in either like the Lighthouse or the Prism or the Geth or the Aragon client that we run to integrate your L2 in a way that is something I'm not really so sure about because I haven't done research with L2s other than understanding that they're going to be very valuable. I mean, so you'd literally either get information or you maybe would need to do a pull request to integrate some minor change to allow your layer 2 to integrate into the network.
Cool.
But then that would be very straightforward because you can just look at how Ethereum does it and we would basically just mirror them, but with our own repos and our own code base.
Awesome. Yeah, because if it benefits Pulsechain, if it benefits Pulsechain and Syscoin can help, I'm sure that we'd help and be happy to do it. So, I'll bring that up to them, once Pulsechain launches, because I do know that there are some people, some team members of Syscoin in here. So, and I know that we've been talking about curiously possibly deploying some type of layer 2 or some scalability solution as Pulsechain gets more adopted to benefit both parties. So, so thank you for that advice,
Corey. I think you keep poking the stick at there being some type of pulse chain like foundation. I think you keep trying to poke the stick at that, and I think that's a good idea personally.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I said that. Sorry, go ahead.
So Corey, what you need to do is you need to knock on Richard's door and then get on your knees, and then you have to ask permission.
Right.
But we won't tell you the address.
Hey, you know what though?
All right.
Hats off to all
you got to find that out for yourself.
Yeah, hats off to all the
he doesn't want building on Pulsechain, so I guess I'm gonna get a no. So
look, it hasn't been easy for everybody that's been building so far. The kind of the hoops that all the builders have had to basically jump through to figure things out. So hats off to everybody that's been able to pull this off. But yeah, it'd be nice to have a central, place where interested developers knew who to reach out to, right? Just to get more information or whatever they need.
I second that.
I kind of like the fact that we don't have a grant system though. And I know we talked about it last time and I'm still sticking by it because the grant system in other L1s is just paying people to integrate, where people that are actually working to build these connections with already established and well-known protocols to come to Pulsechain, they're doing the hard yards to get those partnerships and those people to come integrate. And I think it's incentivizing in the sense that those who are building on Pulsechain at the start want to support and be on Pulsechain. Like they're building for the chain to support it, for adoption, to see it more successful, where it's not just being flooded with a bunch of people that could possibly integrate using a grant system. So a grant system is just where the devs or the chain itself, the founder would pay these people to come over. They're not incentivized to do a ton of marking. They're not incentivized to do a ton of anything really for the chain besides offer their services on it. So we're incentivized as a community to actually strive for adoption by doing it. We're working for the partnerships, and then we're going out and doing the adoption. We're going out and bringing awareness to the chain. And I think that's a much more organic growth. But I know that's controversial and some people don't agree, but that is my opinion. Famous?
I don't think it's controversial at all.
Go Famous.
I was gonna say I agree with you. Our model that we've been using is controversial, which is the sacrifice model, and I don't know if long run if that's going to work out well for most people who sacrifice. And I'll say that could be the case with my stuff as well. But one thing it definitely has done is it means that we're going to have very early on in Pulse Chain a lot of very useful protocols that we definitely would not have. And a lot of very organized teams that have enlightened self-interest, probably because they already have large positions in Hex and other things as well, like Pulse. So I think that's, in a way, this is something that's pretty unique to what we're doing. And I think it actually could work out really well for Pulse Chain for that reason. Maybe it doesn't mean that these things are necessarily great investments, but I think it's actually very good for the community that we're going to have these things pretty much near the start. And we're going to have a pretty active chain because of it.
I agree. And it also brings unity between developers where you don't see that type of unity on Ethereum or other chains currently. So like Power City and Famous, for instance, we would work together for marketing to push out. We would support each other, even just liking other people's content, that's support. It brings adoption and unity between developers that you just don't see. I think that makes us stronger as a community, and it makes Pulse Chain stronger.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat together, to be honest. Like we'll sink or swim together. It's we're gonna try to do well together, basically, because it's going to be very unlikely that we're going to do well all by ourselves in isolation, right? That's the reality of everybody who's building. And I think over the past year, while we've been waiting, I talk to Jesse just about every day. I talk to Alex just about every day. I talk to you, Katie. I send you DMs every day, like it's pretty good. It means we are relatively organized, and I think it has been a really nice thing for the community. As controversial as that model is, and I completely understand why that model is controversial. But I think it is actually potentially going to be a really good thing for the community.
Hey, I want to ask a quick question of Famous, and then I just want to make a comment after that, if I may. Famous, I sacked into both Pulse Chain and Pulsex. I thought I heard you say that it may not work out for us a certain way. Can you elaborate?
I think I was referring to people who sacrificed for projects like mine. Is more what I meant.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, brother.
So I was kind of what I'm saying is sacrifices are inherently very risky, and I don't think all of them will do well. In fact, I think most of them will do poorly as an investment standpoint.
Gotcha.
But what I mean is, however, setting that aside, so there's the investment side of it. I do think it's actually a net positive for the community, because it means that we're going to have things like a fork of Aave, or a fork of Liquidity, or at least two pretty kick-ass NFT platforms on day one, or not day one, day 30, day 60, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it'll happen relatively soon. So I do think that's a net positive for the community, actually. And we're all learning a bit how to develop and run development teams as well in the process. So that means that we'll keep going. So if cool things keep being developed on other chains, I'm going to wager a lot of the teams that are currently building stuff will keep bringing them to Pulse Chain as well. So in a way, we're all getting an apprenticeship in how to run a development team for Pulse Chain, and I think that's actually potentially going to work out really well longer term. That's not an endorsement of any particular sacrifice project or my project. It's just me saying that I think that's actually a net positive for the community. But I can understand if people disagree with that.
You guys are galaxy braining for the last hour, 2 hours. It's amazing the high level of information and knowledge, that which most is over my head. but it's amazing. I'm learning something every time I'm on. But I wanna just this is a cheerleading call. I just want to say, Toshi, you introduced me. You and I have been friends and business associates for over 5 years. We've done a lot of great things together. We've had our ups, our downs, but this is the greatest thing that I've ever had in my life. You introduced me to it. When you think about what 17 days of a sacrifice will be when we look back at this in 2, 3, 5 years, is going to be unbelievable. It's like we were there when the man landed on the moon type of stuff. I mean, that's the way I interpret it. So I want to thank you, bro. You guys are amazing. So please keep this stuff going on. Toshi, again, Toshi and I, obviously, we're bringing a tangible asset to the blockchain as an NFT with Boxabl units, and we're real excited about that. And I'm working on developments here in Texas right now off the blockchain because cowboys on a guy with a hat and boots and a belt buckle sitting on a horse doesn't understand blockchain and consensus and anything like that. But they understand development and housing. So we're working on that. And then Toshi's working on getting us Pixel Park and then Power City, which sounds like again, it's very hard for a baby boomer to comprehend a lot of this stuff. And I've met a lot of you newer guys on it, but thank you for all the shout outs and thanks for the support, and keep doing this because we need to know that the truth about crypto. Too many people think everybody's crooked and corrupt in it, but you guys are an exemplary community, and that's what everybody listening, you're all a part of it. So thanks again. I appreciate it.
Michael and Toshi are the two that have made the collaboration happen between Boxable homes. They're bringing 10,000 tiny homes to the blockchain, and they're bringing it to Pulsechain. It's a massive collaboration. They have a VIP queue, so anybody that buys a Boxable home from the blockchain from them gets put in front of a queue of about 200,000 people. So these two are working to actually help shape blockchain's future, NFT's future, NFT marketplaces by bringing tangible assets, bringing homes to the blockchain. So Michael and Toshi have been working extremely hard, and we're kind of blessed that they're bringing it to Pulsechain too, because it's massive coverage for Pulsechain. Boxable Homes just partnered with Elon Musk. So the two of them are kind of making some big waves in blockchain.
Is that something I think I've heard Long Vacation comment before, but is it that a token represents a place in that 200,000 waitlist queue? And if so, is that the value add? Is that it's basically redeemable to be burnt, and when it's burnt, it's because your product's in production? Is that how that works?
Yeah, pretty much. So the NFT will represent the tangible home, and yes, you do have to burn that NFT, right, to be entered into the queue. It doesn't represent the 200. There's a priority list that we've been able to work with. We've been working with this with Boxabl on this for about a year. There's a priority list for Pulsechain, so we're able to bypass the normal off-chain list, which is a queue for individuals that want to buy off-chain. So we're able to bypass that, help people skip the line, bring this to Pulsechain first to help pull in the adoption and help people diversify their portfolios on chain.
And if I could add, excuse me, guys, if I could add to that, I agree with what Toshi, of course, just said, but we are going to, that 120,000 list is running 1 or 2 a day. And what we have worked out with Boxabl is that if our customers prepay, which you would do when you would go to Pixel Park and buy that NFT, that puts you into production as soon as you want to go into production. You'll be fed into the line and they just bought another factory, another 130,000 square foot factory. You'll be fed into the line, but you won't wait. These people are waiting. They've got a year or two of wait. That's for sure. So we go right into production, or you can hold it and trade it at later date. But when it's time to redeem, then there'll be instructions for you to redeem your NFT, and then you go into production. But it has to be prepaid. That's what everybody else on the 120 line and list are not doing.
So a follow-up to that is that a set in time price, as in the NFT is minted or bought, and then if there's a hold of 6 months and then trading into different people's hands, the speculation is that may have future value above what you put in, but that doesn't mean that your cost to produce as a factory is lessened, 6 months or a year later.
Right. Correct. Just like, and just like, anything, building materials costs could go up, right? So yeah, this will be spelled out for users, right? So they understand what's going on. We've been working with Boxabl directly on that, but yeah, that absolutely.
I want people on other chains to know about Pulsechain. I do think a lot of people in this space know about Pulsechain, but every new cycle, a new wave of people come in. So this cycle is going to have a whole bunch of new people, and I would rather them come and invest in Pulsechain because it's something that's going to succeed versus investing in shitcoins and getting broke. So if somebody's out doing outreach, outbound messaging, I'm going to support them personally because I want to see us successful, and it's done by our community reaching out and going and networking and building those relationships with other people.